Welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, listen, this is where we start out the hour with a little fantasy trip over to Costa Rica. Then we bring it back to Florida and we talk to the 12 preeminent fishermen in each area of the state. And they fill us in on what's biting, what the bait migrations are doing, what the weather conditions have been like. We're in a time of year where there's a lot of things going on. So sit back for a while and listen up, because we're going to get you the report from the areas you like the best. We sure hope you enjoyed tonight's Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. If so, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can get it anywhere you get your podcast from. Leave us some remarks. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Tell us you don't like me. Tell us you want weather reports included. Whatever you can do to help us, we would surely appreciate it. Our action spotters each and every week are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? You need to check out youngboats.com. Now let's get rolling with a trip out to Costa Rica and talk to Craig. Craig, how are you?
I'm good, Captain Ricky. How are you today?
I'm doing outstanding, buddy. I tell you, it's been a crazy week here in Florida. I know your guys were ready. Now, did you open up? Is it June 1st or is it June 12th you guys open back up?
Well, the government extended it. It looks like June 30th.
Oh, Craig, you're killing me.
It's killing me.
I know it. It's a lot harder on you than it is me. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to start with July 1st, and tell me what people can expect when they get there July 1st.
Yellowfin tuna, big ones on top waters. And some live bait, of course.
Yep.
Lots of marlin, lots of sailfish, and big dorado to mix in with them.
Yeah, it's funny. People have you almost have to have a mind shift if you're coming from Florida, because July for most Florida guys starts really kind of a dead time. If you're not a kingfish fisherman, you're in a lot of trouble in July because the dolphin are gone, the sailfish are scattered, there's not much to it. But July's when it really gets cooking down in Costa Rica, isn't it?
Yeah, actually the end of June is when the season starts. That's their fall. The fishing completely changes. It goes from cobalt clear water everywhere to a real good edge, sometimes 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 miles off the beach. The water temperature drops a little bit and the fish get super aggressive. Yeah. That's what we do all our TV shows is during that time frame.
You talk about that, and it does seem as though different times fish do almost seem to have a different aggression level, don't they?
Yeah, I think the water temperature more than anything else. And then, right before our hard winter comes in September and October. And I know here in Florida, in that September, October, you get on the right fish, they get to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah. Yep. Once that water temperature drops just a little bit, it doesn't take much. Yep.
Doesn't take much, but, we're the only ones in Central America that don't get the heavy amounts of rain, because most people are shut down from from May on, for sure, by June on until really into November. And our season starts back again the 1st of November.
Mm-hmm.
We get 150 inches of rain, usually north or south, 80 miles, they get 400 inches of rain.
Wow. 400 inches of rain a year? Wow.
I'll tell you a stat. In Capos, the southern part of Costa Rica, in the month of November, they got 186 inches of rain.
In a month?
In 1 month.
Gee whiz. That's 6 inches a day.
Yeah.
Man.
I've been down there when it rained, during just no storm or anything. No hurricane to speak of. And we got 44 inches in 3 days.
How about that? Gee whiz. Well, I sure hope guys start booking their trips, because July and August is when they want to be there. And
they do. Or November's a good second option.
Yeah? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's their spring.
All right.
So it's a little different pattern, but the fish are still in that fall pattern or that wintertime pattern, and they're still real aggressive. Its only trouble is we don't seem to get the big numbers of marlin in November. We get them, but they're not as near as consistent as that late May through August time frame.
Perfect. Okay, well, I hope people start booking quick because all of a sudden everybody's going to want to go, and there's not going to be room. Now, when do your new places open up?
Casabianca, we're hoping to have it ready to people to occupy November 1.
Gotcha. All right, Craig, well, tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want to catch the marlin or tuna or giant Dorado of a lifetime.
FishingNosara.com, or they can call me at 904-591-2161.
Thank you, Cap. All right, let's start our little trip around the state of Florida up in the northeast corner where we've always got the man in charge up there. Nobody knows the waters of northeast Florida better than Captain David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing fine, buddy, doing fine.
Good. I want to hear a fishing report. Any redfish biting up there?
They've been biting. I tell you, we're dealing with some dirty water up here, however. Over this past week, we got over 6 inches of rain. You know, usually you would think with 6 inches of rain, my God, the water would be pretty much fresh water. But I checked the salinity today, and it's still around 27, 28 parts per million, which is pretty much, that's still ideal. That's still actually high, believe it or not. But the fish have been biting good. We struggled this week with, like I said, dirty water, windy conditions, lots of rain. But if you stuck it out, and you stuck with a game plan, and you fished the shallows and you fished the deep, there were plenty of good fish to find. Seeing a lot better looking trout, I should say, Rick, this week. You know, we were worried there for a while. We were seeing a bunch of dinks, a bunch of small trout. This week, we're seeing quite a few decent ones, 18, 19, even a couple over 20 inches. The red fishing has been, as always, outstanding. Had a group of guys come up from South Florida to fish with me, and they come up here because they actually don't get to catch redfish down there, and we ended up having a pretty good day. A lot of my fish lately, however, have been coming out of the deep water again. I have got several good schools that are on flat, but I'm telling you, you pull 1 or 2 fish out of those schools, they bugger up on you, and boy, it's hard to get them to bite. Several nice flounder this week also, Rick, 17, 18 inches, and we've been worried about the flounder. We'll talk about that another show, but we've had a decent bite of flounder this past week. Not a mere shadow of what it used to be, but still, you know, we'll take what we can get.
Darn right.
I talked to some guys, had some good sheephead today. You know, the pelagics are in. We're seeing lots of ladyfish, lots of jacks. So it's really time to really bend the line inshore. Lots of action. You just have to keep moving, guys. Keep moving. I can't stress this enough. Don't sit in one spot and wonder why you're not catching fish. You got to go find these fish. You got to keep moving.
This time of year, David, it turns into the exact same way offshore. You'll pull up on a spot. And say you're trolling live pogies, you pull up there, you get 2-3 strikes at once, and you think, oh, finally we found a good spot. Here's where we can make our day. You turn back around and go over it, and it's like there was never a fish there. They just vanish. It's funny. But speaking of offshore, the report's been that the mahi have really kind of thinned. We had a real big wave of them, and then we had a little lull, and then we had another little short wave of them a little bit. But boy, it's after June 1st now, and that usually pretty well wraps up our the best of our mahi fishing. Sometimes it lasts till Father's Day, but not often. But I think it's been a better season. I'm thankful for it. And blackfin tuna just continue, David, all up and down both coasts. It's one of the best blackfin tuna seasons I've seen in a long time. Are you seeing any Spanish inshore at all?
A few here and there, not like they were earlier in the season. But we're seeing a few here and there. Had a couple of good questions, Rick, from people this week. Which direction do these mahi tend to move? Are they moving south down towards the Bahamas? Or are they coming from the Bahamas and moving up this direction?
David, we've always believed that they come from the Bahamas across the stream. If we get a lot of east wind like we had this year, it pushes them over to this side, the west side of the stream. And if we get a lot of west wind, there's more of them on the east side. And they travel north. They're up in North Carolina now. Our fish, they have documented mahi traveling 200 miles in a single day. So we know that they are great travelers. And keep in mind, the water is always moving somewhere between 3 to 6 knots in the axis of the Gulf Stream and pushing them up that way. So they come through on their way north, and we see them to a much lesser extent on their way back south. Now, interestingly, that southern migration we quite often see further inshore within 30 miles of the beach. But the migration that we just are wrapping up now, those fish are comfortable off of Charleston on up to Outer Banks by now, on up to Hatteras. And they'll stay up there and then circle around and come back. And interestingly, David, it seems like every year they go a little bit further north. There's been some mahi caught in Rhode Island in the last few years.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Hey, listen, David, thank you for a fantastic report, and we'll talk with you next week.
All right, Ricky, tight lines, buddy.
Now let's hop in the truck and drive on down south a little bit and pull over for East Central and Captain Jim Ross with Fine Line Fishing Charters. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you this week?
I'm doing outstanding, my boy. We had a few days of calm weather. Did you get to fish?
I did get a chance to get out, got out there, and didn't find any live bait, though. I think you guys still have them hemmed up there around Jacksonville. There was no pogies down here on the beach. So grabbed a box of cigar minnows and my stinger rigs, and I ran out to the reef out there to 8A, and I put the first one on, slid it back behind the boat. We call them spinning minnows or popsicles, whatever you want to call it. Slid that thing back there about 75 feet, and clicked the reel in gear, set it in the rod holder, turned around to pull another one of those things out to rig it up. First one's already going. Exactly. First one's going. So I threw it into a hard right-hand circle and pretended I was a commercial guy pulling a paravane or a bug, and I proceeded to put 6 fish in the boat and about 8 baits, and got a remora, a couple of jacks, a sandbar shark, and even hooked up a red snapper on the troll, which promptly ran us back down into the reef and about 20 yards up under the reef and ran us through everything down there and cut us off. But me, having fished all my life, there's always something each trip that it's like, well, if you had that on the boat,
right,
it would have been a big help.
Right.
Well, just guess on a kingfish trip, what did Jim Ross forget on his charter?
I'm going to just take a wild stab in the dark and say a gaff.
Bingo.
That's Jimmy, when you do that, what you can do is make like Roland Martin, and you can just lip them and lift them in that way.
Well, this isn't the first time that Captain Jim has forgotten his gaff, and I've actually gotten pretty good at tail grabbing them. So we put 8 fish over the gunnel. I had 3 customers. They wanted to keep their 2 apiece. So we took 6 of them to 37 pounds, all by grabbing them by hand and laying them in the fish box. So,
you tailed a 37?
Oh, yeah. I had no choice. There wasn't anything else on the boat I was going to get him in with.
You are a younger man than I am. I'm proud of you. You are a younger man than I am. I don't believe I could do that.
But it just cracks me up, Rick. I mean, we're seasoned veterans, or so we perceive. And here we go. We go on a kingfish trip and forget the gap.
Yep.
I mean, talk about just a rookie mistake.
And the worst thing is that moment. When you say to the guy,
"Oh yeah," when I turn around to pick the gaff up and the gaff's not there,
right? It's
because
that
I've been
moment
running trout
that hurt.
trips the last, yeah.
Yep. I know that feeling oh so well. Okay, Jimmy, let me ask you a question. Okay, we know you got kingfish. Has your inshore fishing been pretty good?
No, not really. Sunday and Monday, I kind of struggled at it. We went 0 for 3 on tarpon yesterday. We had 3 jack crevalles. We had a couple of black tips. The day before, we had lots of black tips. The black tips were all over the beach on Sunday. A couple of jacks, and we went 0 for 1 on tarpon that day. So I'm not doing real good the last 2 to 3 outings here. This is Monday that the call's being made on. So you can kind of see my timeline. Friday, I felt like a hero, even though I forgot my gaff. And Sunday and Monday, I didn't feel like I knew which end of the rod should have gone out. The line was supposed to go out of. But yes, there are fish moving up and down the beach. No, they're not in any great numbers. Yes, the tarpon that we saw, we're hightailing it up to the north, I guess, to get to wherever the bait is, because there's no bait here. Everybody I've talked to from Vero all the way, up to Ponce is just not seeing any pogies on the beach at all right now. So there's very limited bait for them, and those fish are moving through. However, they haven't had any bait to eat since Vero. And I'm fishing out of Canaveral the last couple of days. So I can tell you that by the time they get here, they're hungry. And anything you throw in front of them, they're eating. It's just a matter of getting, we're finding some pilchards around some of the buoys. Not many, but that's what we're using as our live baits. And if you can get it in front of the tarpon, and if they see it, they absolutely will mow it down. There's no hesitation in the tarpon's behavior at all. They straight up eat, but they're moving so fast that you're having to crank up the main motor and leapfrog up around them. And normally they'll let you do it once. They don't normally let you do it twice. They stay down and just keep motoring north. Yeah, and they're motoring fast towards your region. You should see tarpon any day now, I would believe, at the rate of speed that I've seen some of these packs of tarpon going by us.
Good.
We've had dolphin, though. The 170 had a big weed line on it the other day. Jaron Malin had like 24 head of dolphin, up to about 16, 17 pounds. So that's kind of a change from what we've had. He also had 2 skippies in there, which we don't normally get skipjack tuna on this side of the stream. They're normally on an east side species. I would say that for people that are looking to go out in the East Central region right now, be prepared to sort of run and gun. Be open to anything that may potentially show up in front of you, because you may find yourself fishing tarpon on the beach. You may find yourself fishing king mackerel on the nearshore reefs. You may find yourself having to run offshore for dolphin, but be prepared to do some changes. Don't think that your game plan is going to be the only one that you're going to use that day.
Jim, I got one more piece of advice for him, too.
What's that?
Don't forget the gaff.
Don't forget the gaff.
Yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up.
Just for those of us that can't remember.
I don't know why that occurred to me. I just brought it up.
We need reminders once in a while.
There you go.
But the trout bite's really strong. My son was out on Saturday morning, and he was trying to call into my radio show, and he couldn't even. He's just like, Dad, I got to go. He says we're doubled up, and then he was unhooking one, and then that guy started casting again, and he's doubled up again. So the trout bite is really good in the Indian and Banana Rivers right now, and there's actually some redfish and black drums starting to show up in the northern part of the Indian River from about the Port St. John area north on the east side flat. There's a lot of bait in there, and there's a lot of fish in with them. Now you're going to have to sight cast, shrimp or some kind of cut bait to those 2 species. They're not really chasing lures all that well right now, especially the drum, but they are there, and they're some good sized ones. They're 4 or 5 pounds up to about 12 pounds. So they're still edible fish. Once they get about 12, 14 pounds, I don't really care to try and eat them, and a lot of other people don't really either.
Right. I'm done with them once they get that size. All right, I got a quick question for you, because
Sure thing.
I really want your insight in this. Flounder.
Okay.
Flounder is kind of a big deal for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, especially in the fall and winter time. Yeah.
Okay. The FWC is looking at lowering the bag limit to 5, which personally I support. They're talking about raising the size limit to 14, which I support because I don't think you get enough meat off a 12-inch flounder to do anything. But they're talking about closing November, and I don't know about that. Which one of those proposals do you like? None, all 3, or?
Well, I mean, like you, I don't think that 10 flounder a day is a reasonable limit for, what our fishery can sustain. I would say that 5 is a much better bag limit. Heck, I'd like to have 5 flounder every time I tried to catch them, and Lord knows that doesn't happen. But a size limit, I'm of the opinion that 14, 15, maybe even 16 inches would be a good size limit, because I don't think it's worth taking a flounder until you can get a fillet that's thick enough to fry off the belly side.
Right.
And those fish don't tend to get that until they get 15 or 16 inches. That's when you start to get, you can scrape out a little thin piece that looks like, something that, like a Lay's potato chip. But, if you want something that's actually edible, friable, 15, 16 inches, I think is a better size. November closure, that's a tough one, because that's when we catch most of our flounder here. So I would say that if you're going to close it, I would rather see it closed during their spawning season than during the season when we typically catch them best.
Well, they say that's when they spawn is November. Or that's when they aggregate. That's when they get in their spawning aggregations. And then move offshore and spawn.
Typically here, we don't see the eggs in them in November. That's why I was kind of going at that angle. It's generally later in the season when we see eggs in them.
Okay. Jim, that's perfect, and that's a great report. We always appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check in with you next week.
I'd love to, and if anybody wants to go out there and want to tail grab a king mackerel, come on, I'm ready to take it.
And if they pay $50 extra, you promise to forget the gaff just so they can laugh at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Hey, you take care, Rick.
Appreciate it. Now we're going to hop back in the truck, going to drive down 95 a little bit to one of my very favorite places. In fact, I happen to be fishing out of there right now. Captain John Earhart and Stewart. John, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing outstanding, my boy. Tell me how fishing's been in Stewart.
Well, I got to tell you, we got some great offshore fishing right now. You know, we're going to have a little bit of windy weather tomorrow, so it might be difficult to get out tomorrow, but Thursday and Friday, and then the later part of the weekend, looks like it's going to be good conditions to get out there and go fishing. A little bit of chance of rain, but we got a lot of sailfish migrating through our area. I think they're spawning, so, I mean, you can actually see these fish right up on the surface this time of year. You know, being as it's the summer, we got calm seas usually in June, so you can drive out to the 6 or the 8 mile reef, and a lot of times you can actually sight fish these sailfish right up on the surface. I'm sure you're well aware because you did pretty good the other day yourself. How many did you wind up catching the other day?
John, we ended up with 7, and I don't very often catch 7 if I get 7 sailfish bites, but that's what we did. We don't normally not miss one, but we had 7 sails in a tuna and saw plenty of fish like you're talking about. So
yeah, and that's really what makes Stewart so phenomenal this time of year is you got calm seas, and you really only have to go 5-8 miles offshore, and you got all the sailfish you could ever want to catch. You got mahis migrating through. You got some nice blackfin tuna, large kingfish. If you get bored of trolling or slow trolling live baits, you can drop down to the bottom and catch plenty of amberjacks, groupers, and snappers right now as well. Doing very well in the mutton snappers and the larger mangroves. That's been 60 to 140 feet of water, and got a lot of amberjacks mixed in up to about 35, 40 pounds right now. So it's been steady fishing offshore when you can get out there, and it should only get calmer as the month goes on.
John, I agree with you 100%. I think it's the most underrated fishery in Florida is the summertime sailfish in the Stewart, Jupiter, Fort Pierce area. I know I love doing it, and I'm surprised. I guess if you live here and you do it long enough, you get used to it, but I'm always thrilled to death to see one finning out on a slick, calm ocean. I just think it's one of the most gorgeous sights we get to see.
Yeah, and it's going to get better in June, July.
I agree. What's going on inshore?
Inshore fishing has been pretty steady this week. Snook season's now closed, so it's all catch and release. But they've been biting pretty darn well. You're catching a lot of 20 to 30-inch fish. I've caught a few 40-inch fish this week, so we're going to start seeing those larger breeder-sized snook, in June, July, and August. So we definitely want to handle these fish with care. Use a little bit bigger reels, larger hooks, and heavier leaders so you can get these fish to the boat quickly and gently release them so that they can spawn and create more snook for the fishery so that it's even better next year. Getting a lot of jacks mixed in too, 2 cabear snappers, and the tarpon fishing's been pretty good for the juveniles right now, a little further upriver.
When do the big fish show up?
Big tarpon, towards the end of June, July, and August, I'll start seeing the bigger ones, and then the largest tarpon are typically caught right around the mullet run in September and October. But I've caught 150, 180-pound tarpon, late June, July, and August. So there's definitely some bigger tarpon going to be showing up. I definitely stick closer to the St. Lucie Inlet and down along the beaches. Further upriver you go, the smaller the tarpon tend to be during the month of June.
Yeah, but for me right now, it's all about sailfish and mahi, and I love fishing out of your inlet. John, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to talking with you next week, if that's all right.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you all next week.
Thank you, buddy. Now we're going to swing on further south. I know Alan Sherman, boy, I saw a picture of him with a great big blackfin tuna. Let's get the word on what's going on in Miami. Alan from Get 'em Sport Fishing, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm doing fine. I'm just glad to see the world opening back up. Are you guys busy?
We're not busy, but there's definitely more business than there had been. People are still kind of cautious. There's a lot of people with private boats that are on the water. But as far as chartering goes, still the hotels are just starting to open up.
Mm-hmm.
So until they get open full, you won't see a lot of people down here. And we're getting into the summertime. So, as it gets hotter, becomes more of the slower season. The guys dolphin fishing come June, July, August, they'll be pretty busy. But the rest of the fleet, the inshore fleet that doesn't have a T-top, it makes for a difficult day out there, 8 hours, especially in the sun. But there's good fishing throughout the summer. It's just a little bit slower as far as business goes. We don't have the tourism. Everybody heads north coming March, April, May, and they won't be back until probably October, November. But there's been a pretty good bite offshore. Now, yesterday wasn't the day, but boy, the water was gorgeous out there. It was a gorgeous blue water edge out in about anywhere from 300 to 600 feet of water. Not a lot of current on it, but a lot of grass, a lot of sargasso weeds with bait under it. And the guys were out there trying to catch some dolphin on it and only got a few. A couple of big ones and a few schoolies and some lifters. But you would have thought that they would have been everywhere, especially seeing last week on Friday. It was a whole different story. It was everywhere you looked, there were dolphin. There were birds out there feeding like crazy, and the dolphin were red hot. Yesterday, we were on the water, and we went tile fishing. We spent probably an hour and a half trying to catch 3, and we did that. We had a lot of bites, and we got 3 nice ones, and then we went looking for dolphin. It didn't happen. Came inside looking for blackfin tunas and kingfish, and we did manage a 27-pound blackfin. So the blackfins typically end in May, at the end of May, and we're just at that, but they're still around. The biggest problem has been catching enough bait fish to chum with.
Right.
So what the guys are doing, they're catching whatever kind of bait they can. And yesterday what we had was cigar minnows. Otherwise we would have had ballyhoo. There's just the pilchard schools have pretty much disappeared for the time being. And until they come back, it just makes it hard to fill a live well up with, 300, 400, 500 baits or more to chum with. But that's what it takes to get those blackfins going. We put the cigar minnows out and we had 1 bite, and that was a 27-pound blackfin tuna. Heard other guys do the same. We had sailfish around, a lot of them, just a few days ago, and they disappeared on us. I know you guys are into them, so maybe they moved all the way up to you. Is that possible?
Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, it's possible. I mean, they're the fastest fish in the ocean. Plus, the water's coming this way anyway. But Stuart, just in the last few days, Stuart has come alive with sailfish.
Well, maybe they hit our school that we had last week.
Yeah. But, Alan, everywhere I go this year, from Jacksonville to Pensacola, everybody's saying the same thing, how good the blackfin tuna fishery has been.
Yeah, there's been a lot of big ones, too. 25-pounders, 30-pounders. They're a tough fish on light tackle. And, I'm an inshore guy, so when I go offshore, I'm taking the same tackle with me. You hook up on a light rod, and you're in for a long, long battle, and that was the case. We also have some decent fishing for permit. The permit have been on the oceanside flats, going for crabs. That fishery's been pretty good. And trying to think of what else has been happening here. The tarpon and snook fishing in the inlets has been good at night. And that kind of wraps it up. That's what we're finding out here right now.
Well, that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure that lull in the mahi is a temporary thing. I think you're going to be seeing them. Your brother to the south, Nick Stanzik, reported lots of them on his rips down there. So I'm sure they'll be up there for you pretty soon. So
he gets them first.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. You ought to tell him to quit catching. You ought to tell him not to catch so many so you guys can catch some.
That's all right. Hopefully there'll be plenty that spread around.
Just think how few are left by the time they get up to me in Jacksonville. Then I'm really in trouble.
You are, for sure. But, last week you were talking about a big run of dolphins. Is that right? Yeah,
and it has been a much better season. It's been a much better season in both Stewart and Jacksonville. So, I'm thankful for that. I've been told that we don't have a big impact as fishermen on dolphin. They are so prolific. They spawn all the time, and it's more of a matter of starvation for them than it is us catching them. But I sure am glad when the good years roll around. I promise you that. And this looks like it's a pretty good one.
Well, we hope so for sure, Rick.
Yep. Alan, as always, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please stay after them, and just remember this. You may catch a lazy sailfish from time to time, but you're never going to catch a lazy blackfin tuna.
They don't give up, boy, until the gap goes into them, boy.
They are a bad, bad, bad animal. All right, brother. We'll talk with you next week. Thank you, Alan.
All right. See you next week.
Now, the best place in Florida, my own personal favorite, Ala Mirada. It's as close to paradise as we're going to get here, folks. I tell you, that's where legendary Captain Nick Stanzik hangs his shingle out at Bud and Mary's. Nick, are you with us?
How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing wonderful, Cap. Tell me about life on the Broad-Minded.
The Keys did open up to non-residents on June 1st, so that was good news. And I was fortunate. I took some locals out the past couple of weeks, and I fished 4 trips the past week. We didn't get any swords the first trip, but we got fish, we got a snowy grouper, got some rosies. So that was good eating. And then the next 3 trips in a row, we did get a swordfish each trip. We got one big one yesterday, 242 pounds.
Good one.
Had about 15 mahi. Yeah, we had some black fins. So that was all good. The other swordfish, we let one small one go one day. We kept another about 70 pounds. A lot of mahi, though, the last few trips. Mostly schoolies, a few gaffers, but all the fish today, they all had 20 to 30 fish. So that was good to see for the mahi as well.
That is really good. I tell you, Nick, all up and down the East Coast, at least, it has been a little bit better mahi season than the last few years, hasn't it?
It's turning on now for us. We had a good push of them a few weeks back, and then it slowed down like a week or two, but then now they're seem to be here in full swing, so hopefully it stays that way for a while.
I hope so, too. Are your inshore guys back running?
Yeah, some of the guys fished the last 2 days. I know my brother had 4 tarpon fishing the bridges on one of his recent trips, and then I saw Captain Jim Wilcox fishing the backcountry, and he had the usual suspects. He had redfish, snook, juvenile tarpon, so they had some good action back there. And hopefully all these people come down the next few weeks. These guys will get out there and keep fishing.
Man, I'm just glad to hear people are on their way back and everything's filling up and you're going to be booked every day. That's a good thing. So how about if we check in with you next week and see what your swordfish streak is at then?
Give me a call. We're at 3 trips now. Hopefully we'll make it to 4, and we'll be down here. Hopefully the fish keep biting, the people keep traveling, and everyone stays safe and healthy.
I don't want to hear about 4, Nick. I want to hear about 20. You made it to 19. What was it, 19 you made it to?
Something like that, 19 or 20. I can't remember.
I think
I'm
it was
getting too old to remember.
yeah, don't tell me that. I think it was 19. I want to hear about 20. We'll talk about it next week. Thanks, Nick.
Yep, thanks for calling. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Nick Stancic from Bud and Mary's checking in. Now we're going to swing around a little bit to the west and stop in the 10,000 Islands where our man Steve Dahl hangs out. Steve, are you with us?
I am. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing fine. How is life island style?
It's good. It's really good. The fishing's treating us well, so that makes life that much more enjoyable. And our boat traffic is to a minimum. And you pretty much can have a handful of islands to yourself these days, so it's pretty good.
You brought up a very interesting point with that. Have you seen a lot of signs of the people that were furloughed or laid off due to the COVID? Have you seen a lot of signs of them going back to work? You seeing fewer boats?
I do. I mean, we're obviously really heavy tourism down in Southwest Florida, but the summer months tend to slow down a little bit. But we're also seeing, during obviously thing with the furloughs, boat traffic was up, and the one dynamic we had, and is we had other counties coming to us, whether it be Miami-Dade or Broward on the East Coast, saying, the West Coast has opened up, we're going to go. So we saw much more of an influx of traffic this time of year than we normally would. And that's kind of subsided quite a bit. So the people kind of getting back to work and the economy kind of, recovering here, it's getting kind of back to normal. The fishing's just hot. The snook fishing, I talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, that the sight fishing opportunities right now for 30-inch plus snook.
Oof.
And there's fish, in the 40-inch class too. They're 40-inch snook and they're tough to catch, but we're catching a few upper 30-inch class fish. But there are just droves of snook on the beaches right now, and the trend continues. Even though we've had some really good rain in probably the last 10 to 14 days, our water is it looks like the Bahamas. I mean, I look like, I feel like I'm bone fishing in the Bahamas, but it's a snook.
Wow,
so,
that's a good thing.
It really is, and they're readily taking artificials, which is great. Sight fishing 101, that's one of the pinnacles of our sport. So we're catching snook on the beaches. It's really good. The tarpon are also making I wouldn't call it necessarily a second wave because I think the migration's kind of over with, but we're seeing some active fish. And I think what's happening is it's really on the guys that like to fly fish that are doing exceptionally well, and the guys that actually like to throw artificial. And I'm likening it and just kind of talking to some of the other captains that they've seen every single piece of cut bait and live bait and crabs that they can see. And not that they're not going to willingly take that, but, you throw a 5 to 7 inch black and purple paddle tail next to them. That's something they probably haven't seen because it's going against the grain a little bit. It's the old, maybe show them something different when they get conditioned. And it seems to be working this past week. If you're going fishing, this weekend or this upcoming week, don't be afraid to throw some bigger paddle tail swim baits at them and just slow roll them. There's not a lot of cadence to this. This is just, you can sweep it every once in a while, but the reality is it's just a nice, steady retreat. So that's kind of our backcountry report for now. It's doing really well.
That's a fantastic tip. I think guys always go to the path of least resistance and always think the live bait's going to be better. But what you're saying makes perfect sense. That's not necessarily the case. If they've seen 100 mullet with a hook through his back, they know that's trouble. They might respond better to something that they haven't seen.
Yeah, I like it from an efficiency standpoint. And I can cover just that much more water in a given time period by throwing moving baits as opposed to camping on a spot with live bait. And that has its place, don't get me wrong. But if I got a couple anglers on board that are pretty savvy with their casting ability, we're going to be throwing artificial.
I like it.
I love that.
I like it. Have you heard anything from the deep water?
Yeah, we have. It's, obviously gags up west, and we're on them. The hard part is that the amberjacks are close. You can't get past them, so it's a little bit of a nuisance doing that. But that's a good problem to have, especially if you got some anglers on board that have really never pulled on some amberjacks. But the gag grouper were doing great. Live pinfish is the ticket. There's no doubt about that. So if you can get some live pins, most area tackle shops do get them, but they're readily available on the grass flats. If you wanted to throw a net, set some traps out, this is where kind of that communal aspect of our fishing community helps. If you can get some guys together to be able to set those traps and share that. So you'll have bait for days. But, getting live pins is paramount right now. Simple knocker rigs right on the bottom. They're holding more so to ledges, it seems like. And we're finding fish as close as 60 feet of water, which is pretty rare for us. Usually in the first part of summer, we're kind of having to travel a little bit for those fish a little bit deeper. But good reports coming out of like that 60, 70 foot range. There's also been some football-sized mangroves in the mix of that as well.
And how far offshore for you is 60 feet of water? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it really depends on kind of where you're going out of. But, just due west of Naples, I mean, it's still a commute, don't get me wrong. You're looking at a good 30 miles for us, and which isn't all that bad. And, some of the bigger boats, you can make those runs. And the mornings are usually good as far as weather-wise. My advice when you're going offshore in our area is hit your furthest stuff first and then make your way, set your milk run of spots on your way back. That way you can keep an eye on that weather. So that's always something to be concerned about.
That's one of two hard and fast rules that I try and stick to. If I make it to the inlet in the morning and the wind is out of a different direction than it's called for, say like they're saying it's going to be southeast 5 knots and it's northeast 5 knots or even 10 knots instead, you can count on one thing. I'm going northeast. I mean, if they're really wrong and it's going to get rough, I want it pushing me home. I stand by the same rule that you do. All right, when is the most likely for thunderstorms? Late afternoon. Good. Let me run as far as I can right now, and I'll fish my way all the way back home.
Yeah, it really makes sense. And, it kind of breaks up that long ride home, too. I even do that with my backcountry stuff if I can. People have the energy to be able to take that morning run a little bit better than when they're tired and coming home. So
there's nothing better than early morning on a fishing trip. That the anticipation, that is the whole drug right there is the anticipation of breaking that inlet in the morning. I tell you what.
They're so true.
As always, we appreciate it so much, Steve. I surely hope you guys have a good week. I'm glad that the tourists are starting to flood back into South Florida again, and you and I will talk next week and get lots of great fishing stories from you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Cap.
Talk to you next week.
I appreciate it. Let's move on around to Southwest Florida and talk with our buddy from Snook Stamp Charters, Captain Greg Stamper. Snooky, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rick. How are you today?
Hey, did I tell you I caught 7 sailfish yesterday? If I haven't told you yet, ask me how I did on sailfish yesterday.
Hey, have you been sailfishing lately?
Oh, funny you should ask. I caught 7 yesterday.
Wow, I'm something sick. That's awesome.
I don't get that lucky very often. I got to brag when I get the chance.
All right, well, I'll bring you down here, and you got to do that down here and show me how that works.
I don't think I can do that. Let me tell you, hey, let me assure you of one thing, Greg Stamper. For me to get 7, they got to be thick.
Good. Sounds like the fishing's really good up there, Rick.
Yeah, it is in Stewart. Is your water as clear as what we're hearing south of you?
Yeah, for the most part, in most of the areas, it is. In some situations, I think it's a little bit too clean for the back bays. But it's been really nice because when you're out front, you can see so much stuff, especially along those beaches. And those snooks that did spawn for us once already are starting to show up on those beaches pretty good. So if you're slow rolling, you can see them, which is really fun. The problem with that, though, Rick, is if you can see them,
they can see you. Yep.
So you got to it goes 50-50. It just depends on what you're doing. But let me tell you, this week has been good pretty much no matter what you want to do. We've had a lot of good days of weather. So we haven't had a crazy amount of rain in my neck of the woods. It's been trying to dump hard, but we keep kind of getting missed. So that water is coming from way up in the back. It'll get here eventually. All our ponds and lakes and rivers and stuff are very low still. But in about another 2 or 3 weeks, that whole scenario will change. The rain, though, is a good thing because it did bring a lot of bait around, and the fishing's been good, whether you're in the back bays, midshore, or offshore. To start with, the gag grouper opened up for us. Even Snook Staff got his chance at some in some super shallow water. So if I'm catching them, Rick, I guarantee you the guys offshore are going to wreck them. I saw several fish come in today, and they were big fish. They were offshore guys. They were probably near shore to offshore, and I saw fish that were 30 inches coming in. Now, the good part is those grouper don't know yet that their season's open. So if you go now, you're going to get them.
They'll get that message real quick, by the way. They're not very slow in that regard. Well, that's outstanding.
I agree.
How far a run is it from where you are out to where they're grouper fishing?
Okay, so if you have the ability and you know the area, there's places we catch them in 7, 8 feet of water, 12 feet of water, but that's very, very technical, and you have to know what you're doing. The guys most of the time are going to be anywhere from 35 to 45 feet right now because those fish don't really know yet that they're open. But those fish are going to move out real quick, and they're going to get out there plus 100 feet very soon. So if you get them this week, you're going to hammer them, and those fish are going to wise up, and they're going to start tailing it out to offshore very, very quickly where the red groupers and stuff live.
Yeah, I've always said that a 30-pound gag does not become a 30-pound gag by being stupid.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. I wish I could get my hands on a 30-pounder, but the fish that we caught on the day of opening were 26 and 27 inches, and I got to be honest with you, I forgot how good they taste. So,
that's it, Bubba.
Fantastic to get those.
You are dead on. I would not trade that 27-inch grouper for a 30-pounder. Your fish tastes much better.
Yeah, so let me tell you about the offshore guys. They've had a lot of really nice days to go out there and play. They continue, if you're getting out there 120 feet plus, to catch pompanos, African pompanos, like it's going out of style. They're sitting there, and they're the first thing to bite. They're catching lots of big mangrove snappers, yellowtails, and the mutton snapper fishing continues to be fantastic. They still are being destroyed, and they're getting annoyed by these things called red snapper, but I don't really feel sorry for them because that's going to come in tune very soon.
Yep. Well, you're in good shape in that regard, much better shape than the Atlantic side is. The council in its infinite wisdom has decided, nope, not this year. We don't have enough snapper on the East Coast to handle a 3-day season this year, Greg Stamper.
Well, Rick, if you listen to the guys who are going offshore and really do it hard and they get out there far, it's kind of crazy how many fish they're catching here and how many they have to just let go. And most time they can vent them or they can drop them down, get them acclimated again by those the chargers that drop them in like 80, 90 feet so they're back where they started. But some guys don't have that, and they're like watching them just float away like balloons until they deflate and go down. So we've got a lot of them here, and those guys out there are going to wreck them when it's time for it. So good for them. Now, I'll tell you one other thing that's been amazing this entire week is the snook fishing and the red fishing. So if you're fishing incoming tides throughout southwest Florida this week, it's like redfish mania. And as soon as that tide switches and starts going out, it's like a timeshare for these guys. The redfish move out, the snook move in, and you can hit the same areas and just smash snook all day long. So outgoing for snook, incoming for red.
Gotcha. Boy, that's a great report. Sounds like the time to be in southwest Florida right now. How's your charter book looking? Have you got some openings coming up?
Oh, I've got openings. I mean, with all the COVID stuff that happened, we lost a lot of stuff, and a lot of people didn't come down, or some still can't, Rick. So, we have a lot of ability to get out there. We've had a lot of good tides. The juvenile tarpon fishing is going to start blowing up, which is what I do a lot of in the summertime. So if people want to catch snook, red, juvenile tarpon, as long as you're willing to wake up super early or go out late in the evening, let's do it.
First light, last light. I'm telling you, this time of year, it becomes more important than any other. Greg, that's a fantastic report. As always, we appreciate you keeping up with Southwest Florida for us. Tell me we can talk to you next week.
Absolutely, Rick. And you're going to come down here and tell me how to sailfish. Thank you.
I'd love to do that. All right. Thank you, buddy. All our action spotters are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? You want youngboats.com.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Now let's move up the coast a little bit to the West Central region where Ray Markham is large and in charge. Raymond, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. I'm just hanging around here watching it get ready to rain, I guess.
It's Florida. It's summertime. It's going to rain.
If you don't like the way the weather is, wait an hour. It'll change.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Tell me how your week's been, buddy.
I'm telling you, I got reports piling in here from all over the daggum place. For the guys with the federally permitted head boats, charter boats that are running out to get American red snapper, oh my gosh, the stuff is showing up on the docks like you wouldn't believe. Just tons of red snapper. Apparently, I guess when everybody gets ready to go out there next week, and if you're not of those same people and you're just a regular recreational guy, there probably won't be any left.
Yeah, it's a little strange to me how the certain boats get to go before other boats. I know we've battled that on the East Coast. Commercial season starts 2 weeks before the recreational season, which I can never figure out.
Well, over here on the Gulf side, I mean, it started yesterday, and the pictures started blowing up here last night and again today. And I mean to tell you, if there's not a whole pile of those things out there, I don't know what is, because between that and the gag grouper, I mean, the gags, they say, are a little bit tougher. But you know what? Those are all the guys that I'm hearing who are running out to 100, 150 feet. Yet I get all these guys that are fishing the bay, and they're catching, decent legal gags, 24 to 30 inches. And I'm going like, all right, well, they're fishing, a mile, 3/4 of a mile offshore, and everybody else is like 35 or 40. So, I don't know. I think maybe not burn too much gas and try the inshore stuff.
Yep, sounds like a good plan. What are you hearing from inshore?
Inshore, the trout bite's actually been really good, and this weekend we're coming up on full moon. I do believe it is Friday. And the tides are really picking up, and the bite is just really starting to rip with tarpon right now. Guys are working the late afternoon outgoing tide. This is the tide, and the full moon in June. Typically, we have a shrimp spawn late in the afternoon, early evening, where just like the past crabs that go flooding out of the estuary with strong currents, you got the same thing going on with shrimp. So guys that are in the shallow edges of the passes, they're all sitting around with big dip nets and lanterns or head lanterns if they're walking the flats, and they're dipping shrimp, and they're doing real well with it. There's some other guys that will take a lantern and suspend it off a bridge, and they'll take a fine mesh cast net and sit there wait for the shrimp to come up to the light. They kind of got to wait till the tide sort of slows down because it's a little bit more difficult with a cast net with the thing drifting with the current. But when that happens, that all the shrimp come up there and they throw the cast net over it, and then they got a whole bucket full of shrimp to take home.
Excellent.
So, I mean, there's a lot of good things going on. I mean, the snook bite has been horrendous, but I really want to caution everybody that's out catching snook and fishing for them this week. You know, this is prime time for spawning, and they're catching those big fish, and be real gentle and put them back, because it's a future stock in the process here over the next few days.
Ray Markham, I've known you for more than 20 years.
I'm sorry.
You may be the most conservation-oriented fishing guide I know. And please take that the way I mean it. Not many people think about, I got to be very careful handling this snook because she's full of eggs and I don't want to stress her out and all that. And I love it when you show how you feel that way.
Well, I've got some amazing cleaning knives that I use. Trust me, I mean, I've eaten my share of fish, and I like fish every now and then, but you always get these guys that are like, man, I bet you get a freezer full of fish. I said, nope. When I was a kid, we grew up with freezers full of fish, and by the end of the year, you wouldn't know what they were. They were just a block of something, and it didn't taste anything like what it would have tasted like if it was fresh. So I quit doing any kind of frozen fish. If it's not flopping on the dock and on the cleaning table this afternoon, I'm not eating it tonight, and I'm not eating it at all. Yep. It is what it is.
Ray, I've even started on my own private boat. When we bring a fish alongside, if it's a kingfish, if it's a blackfin tuna, if it's a mahi, whoever caught it, I'll say, all right, do you want this fish? Because if you want this fish, we'll take it. But if you're not going to take it home with you, it's going to stay where it is. So, all right, Ray, thanks for a great report. Please tell me we can get another one from you next week.
Yes, sir. If the good Lord's willing and the fish don't. And the fish want to rise over here. But it's a freak out rise, too, when it starts to rain. And here it comes now.
All right, Captain Ray. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Catch you later.
Now, let's pull up into the Big Bend a little bit and find out what the mayor of Homosassa is doing, William Toney. How are you, my boy?
Doing well. Sitting down here in downtown Homosassa. All is well. A little bit slow this evening. We had a Harley come through a little bit ago, but the big thing right now, if you want some traffic here on the Big Bend, you should have been at the boat ramps yesterday morning on June 1st of all those guys going out for gag grouper.
Yep. Opening a grouper season yesterday. Yep.
Oh, Rick, I'm telling you, it's been yesterday they said was breezy. Today they deemed it windy, but I think yesterday was breezy and today was a small hurricane.
Little sloppy ocean, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an inshore guy, so if it gets out where I can't see land, I just get a little bit paranoid. But all the guys at the big offshore boats are heading out, and the gag grouper bite has been good. And anglers that have been going out have been getting their limits. Actually today I saw some folks and talked to them who were getting fish in 8 to 14 foot of water, which were in smaller boats, but that was still pretty sloppy out there today. The bigger bite too was out in 30 to 50 feet, and those anglers were getting gag grouper and red snapper. So, they had tough it. I have to give it to them for doing it. But I tell you what, if you're going to go out there and do it, you best have the big boat.
Yep. There are times when size matters, and that's one of those times when the ocean starts to get a little rough.
Absolutely. But, the inshore bite on the gag grouper was with live pinfish, fishing natural rocks and ledges anywhere from 8 to 14 feet. Now, sitting there, you're going to have to sort through them, and there was actually folks out there spearfishing, so they if you can't get them to bite the line, they're always going to bite the shaft. But we're looking at a week right now where we're going to have to really watch the Gulf, especially up here in the Big Bend and then out there up in North Florida, the low pressure building, maybe possibly our first little tropical wave front, something going on. So we've had a really hard east wind, but with this new tide coming in right now, it's just been humping in. The redfish bite's been good. Trout have moved out to about 8 foot of water. There's still a few big fish. If you want to use a popping cork with a jig underneath, about 24 inches, anywhere from 2 to about 5 foot, Homosassa Bay, Mangrove Point, all the way up 11 Prong and Wakasassa Bay, there's still some nice trout left in there. But for the action and the good bite, it's out in 8 to 12 foot of water, single jigging, way deep, sea bass, bluefish, mackerel, and, the trout all mixed in together.
Outstanding. Hey, William, I got a question for you.
All righty.
Okay. Your places over there all have weird names. Huzahuiska and Homosassa, and are those all from the same Indian tribe, or where did all those names come from?
Well, I'll put it this way. I'm going to mix a little bit of Indian down here with the local folk that grew up or in our area. I tell people in my town, we have a family tree, and it's a palm tree. There's no leaves on it. It goes straight up the line, buddy. But all your Wakasassa, Homosassa, Chazawiska, they are all Native American names, and and I think if you threw them all in one pot and boiled it down, it just means good fishing.
Yeah, that's you know what, Chahuzahuiska is probably good fishing for something. That's
well, you got Wethakuchi, that's the old nickname for that was Hoochie Coochie, but it's the Wethakuchi.
The Wethakuchi.
You got Tazla, Popka, you got all of them, but the Big Bend is still a little bit old Florida, and the names have hung in there, and I do know that Homosassa is the land of hanging pumpkin, and Chazawiska is land of pepper.
Is that right?
That's what. Yep, that is the old Native American name for it. And I tell you, a cool book. If you never read it, Rick, you ought to check out The Gulf at American Sea. And it explains a whole lot about this area of Florida, but the whole Gulf region. It's a real good read.
I love books about Florida. Did you ever read Toch?
Oh, yes. Life in the Everglades. You know what? If I could change lives, I want to jump in his shoes.
He lived a good one, didn't he? How about A Land Remembered? Did you read that one?
No, absolutely. All of those. I'm a big reader. Sometimes I can get into a book so much that I can't fall asleep. I just can't see what's around the next corner and just keep reading.
All right. Well, this may go on the air, this may not, but you got to get A Ship of Gold in the Deep Blue Sea.
A Ship of Gold in a Deep Blue Sea. All right.
Yep.
I'm looking for that one. I got to see it.
And by the way, I know some Native American too. You know what vegetarian is Native American for?
A poor hunter.
Lousy hunter. That's exactly right. Captain William Toney, as always, we appreciate a great report. Please tell me we can check in with you next week.
I'll be right here in Homosassa, living proud. Thank you, my friend.
Keep them straight in Cahuzawiska, will you?
and the Wackakuki.
Oh, don't want to forget the Hoochie Coochie. Talk to you next week, Cap. Now let's pull over into Northwest Florida a little bit and talk with somebody that I know is happy to see red snapper season open back up, Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, how are you?
Captain Rick, I'm doing just great, and you hit the nail on the head. Thank goodness red snapper is open.
Were you booked today?
We were booked today, but we had to cancel for some weather, and Our clients couldn't take any kind of rough weather because of their age.
I'm starting to relate to that more every day.
Well, you can understand that, but we are booked solid. But we got this new tropical issue going on weather-wise, so we're keeping an eye on that. It looks like it's going to keep us tied to the dock most of the weekend, but opening day was just out of this world. Best opening day I've ever had. We broke our personal best red snapper on the boat twice yesterday, so
Really?
It was awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
How big?
The biggest one was 27.1 pounds, and the second one was 25.8.
That's a pair of fine ones, Cap. That is a pair of fine red snapper. There's one thing I know. When they closed red snapper, they told us it took 35 years to grow a fish that big. They were wrong.
I believe that. The fish that I've seen over the last couple of years, I mean, we had 3 customers on the boat, so we had 6 red snapper. Our average for the 6 was 19.6.
Ooh, that's good fish. That is good fish. My goodness. Anything to go with them, or is yesterday all about red snapper?
No, we got some gag grouper, a little bit over keeper size. We've been having some luck on our flatlines for king mackerel. We got another king about 15 pounds. So that made our day. Funny thing was, we always throw that flatline out there, and we got our 3rd biggest red snapper on that flatline yesterday.
How about that? How about that? In how deep of water?
We went back and forth from about 90 to 100 feet of water.
So he came up at least 90 feet to eat that flatline, huh?
He did, and it's not uncommon around here. I tell a lot of guys, don't always go to the bottom because sometimes those bigger fish are halfway down. I had a friend tell me years ago, it says, drop the bait till it goes out of sight and then count to 5.
Yep. I like that. Kevin, I've always believed in those big fish. I think what they do, I think they watch those little fish get caught, and when those little fish start spitting up whatever they had eaten that hooked them, those big fish want to be right there to eat it, and that's how they end up high in the water like that. So I don't know that theory.
I think so.
I don't know that theory holds any water, but it sold me anyways. I guess it does.
Well, my theory is it's the big dog on the porch theory. The big dog on the porch is going to let the little ones run around and eat and fight and do all that stuff. But when he's ready to eat, he's going to come down and get what he wants. And that's my philosophy in catching big red snapper.
I think you're exactly right. Now, what have you heard from inshore in your area? Anything?
Still quite a bit of flounder. They're picking up some pompano along the beaches. So, there's enough activity to keep people going. Redfish, I saw a school of redfish the other day when I took a cruise group out, and it was just up the beach from us away, and there's probably 20 to 30 fish in that group. So there is a lot of fish being caught inshore. Triple tail are still being caught. So right now is what I say is the money time for our area. I mean, there is everything. I mean, we're even getting mahi already for us. And, the Gulf mahi are not real big, but they're still a lot of fun to catch.
Oh, they all are. There's no doubt. All right, I got a quick one for you before you go. The FWC is looking real hard at flounder. They are proposing a 5-fish, 14-inch minimum size limit. Yay or nay?
I don't mind the 5 fish, but I don't see a point in the 14-inch.
Okay, so you would stay at 12. You'd go 5 fish, 12 inches.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to limits on fish because sometimes, I think we have to keep a finger on things a little bit, but I think we go too excessive when we start looking at limits and links and all this stuff to where we make it complicated.
Okay, all right. They're also talking about closing November. No flounder harvest in November. That was the one that I struggled with a little bit. I didn't like that. What do you think?
There again, I would go with you on that one on regulations. You know that as well as I do.
Okay.
It's just like why the heck have yellowtail snapper regulations up here in the Gulf? We don't catch them.
Yeah.
Let the guys down there in the South have them. But it would make no difference to us in November not to be able to catch flounder because the water's too cold in there.
Gotcha. Thank you, Kevin. We look forward to talking with you next week, if that's all right.
Captain Rick will be here next week, and good Lord willing, and the weather don't eat us up, we'll have a lot more red snapper to report.
I can't wait to hear about it. KC Charters. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, you guys have a great day.
Now let's head out because we can't leave Florida until we stop in Lower Alabama and check in with our buddy Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are y'all doing?
Doing outstanding. How's everything over in the far northwest corner of the state?
Well, it's been windy last couple of days on us, but we've had some good weather last week, some good fishing, but the wind definitely showed up today.
That made it tough. Yesterday was a big opening for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had a great first day of red snapper season for us on our federal charter boat. So, we did that. We caught some mangrove snappers out there as well, and the king mackerel are just now starting to show up. So we got some good fishing out there for us.
I would guess that the federally permitted headboats that made it out yesterday, it was A, pretty rough, and B, they all got their limit. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that's both the case. Today was definitely rougher than yesterday. It was probably 4 foot out there today, but we stuck out there and got our snappers and came back in. And then the rest of the week, we have some tropical stuff coming on, may affect us. So we're just kind of holding tight and waiting for that.
Yeah, I think everybody is. Have you heard anything from inshore?
So inshore fishing, still catching Spanish mackerel, the redfish, still hanging around the docks in the sound and over the grass. And speckled trout fishing's been good too. As it warms up, we get a better early morning trout bite and a good late afternoon trout bite. The middle of the day, not the best time to go for our speckled trout. It could be the same for you guys. I'm not sure, but it seems like, morning and then late afternoon, middle of the day, not so good.
Tyler, a lot of guys over here on the East Coast switch to night fishing when it gets this hot. Do you guys do a lot of that?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite. Docklight fishing for trout and redfish is awesome. Just pick the lights that are bright, and you can go to a bunch of them in a row, and there's usually fish in every single one. So free line live shrimp or Missouri pins, minnow, DOA shrimp, all that kind of stuff works great light fishing.
Perfect. That's an outstanding report. Boy, I hope that tropical mist leaves you guys alone. I'm a little nervous about all this tropical activity so early in June.
Yeah, we're definitely not scared of it, but we're just wishing it would go somewhere else or not be there. That's part of living in Florida, and we just got to deal with it. But like you said, it's kind of early, and we'll have to see what comes.
Yep, I think we're all going to be fine. Ocean's going to lay back down. Those red snapper are going to start falling out of the sky like raindrops. Cap, as always, we appreciate it, and we look forward to talking with you next week, if that's all right.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you.
Our thanks to Tyler Massey. He wraps up our trip around the state tonight, and it was a good one. We got some great reports. Jim Ross forgetting his gaff and said kingfish were everywhere. Down in Stewart, the sailfish bite is really, really strong. Alan Sherman catching 27-pound blackfin tuna from his little bay boat. I mean, there has been some strong fish. And Nick Stanczyk's on a new streak of swordfish, and that is great news. It's funny how David Voorhees reported filthy water up in the northeast Florida area, while down in the southwest, Greg Stamper's saying the water's too clear, the fish can see us too easy. So it seems like you never make fishermen happy. Ray Markham's happy. He's always happy. They got lots of kingfish and quite a few gag grouper up his way. You going around through the Big Bend, William Toney, everybody was excited about the opening of red snapper and grouper season, and overall fishing's been pretty good. We got some weather to watch out for. Let's hope this tropical mess falls apart. I'm counting on it. One thing for sure, we'll know by this time next week when we're back with another Florida Sportsman Action Spotter. Brought to you this and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. And by Young Boats. You want the best in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? You want youngboats.com. Hey, we hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast. If you did, gosh, we'd be honored if you subscribed to it. I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, I will see you on the rip.